A few weeks ago, we talked about false discoveries, scientists who claimed they'd found evidence for alien life. But why is it that we get so easily fooled and jump to conclusions? How bad is it? And what can we do about it? That's what we'll talk about today. My younger daughter had spaghetti for the first time when she was about 2 years old. When I put the plate in front of her, she said, "Hair." The remarkable thing about this is not so much that she said this, but that all of you immediately understood why she said it. Spaghetti are kind of like hair. And as we get older and learn more about the world, we find that other things also look kind of like hair. Willows, for example, or mops. Even my hair sometimes looks like hair. Our brains are pattern detectors. If you've seen one thing, it'll tell you if you come across similar things. Psychologists call this apophenia. We see connections between unrelated things. These connections are not wrong, but they're not particularly meaningful. That we see these connections, therefore, tells us more about the brain than about the things that our brain connects. The famous Rorschach inkblot test, for example, uses apophenia in the attempt to find out what connections the patient readily draws. Of course, these tests are difficult to interpret because if you start thinking about it, you'll come up with all kinds of things for all kinds of reasons. Seeing patterns in clouds is also an example of apophenia. And there are some patterns which we are particularly good at spotting, the ones that are most important for our survival, ahead of all, faces. We see faces everywhere and in everything. Psychologists call this pareidolia. The most famous example may be Jesus on a toast. But there's also a Jesus on the butt of that dog. There's a face on Mars, a face in this box, a face in this pepper, and this washing machine has had enough. The face on Mars is worth a closer look to see what's going on. In 1976, the Viking mission sent back images from its orbit around Mars. When one of them looked like a face, a guy by name Richard Hoagland went on TV to declare it was evidence of a lost Martian civilization. But higher resolution images of the same spot from later missions don't look like faces to us anymore. What's going on? What's going on is that when we lack information, our brain fills in details with whatever it thinks is the best matching pattern. That's also what happened, if you remember my earlier video, with the canals on Mars. There never were any canals on Mars. They were imaging artifacts supported by vivid imagination. Michael Shermer, the American science writer and founder of the Skeptic Society, explains this phenomenon in his book The Believing Brain. He writes, "It is in this intersection of non-existing theory and nebulous data that the power of belief is at its zenith and the mind fills in the blanks." He uses as example what happened when Galileo first observed Saturn in 1620. Galileo's telescope at the time had a poor resolution, so Galileo couldn't actually see the rings. But he could see there was something strange about Saturn. It didn't seem to be round. Here's a photo that Geordie Busk took a few months ago with a resolution similar to what Galileo must have seen. What does it look like to you? Galileo claimed that Saturn was a triple planet. Again, what's happening is that the human brain isn't just a passive data analysis machine. The brain doesn't just look at an image and says, "I don't have enough data, maybe it's noise or maybe it isn't." No, it'll come up with something that matches the noise, whether or not it has enough data to actually draw that conclusion reliably. This makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. It's better to see a mountain lion when there isn't one than to not see a mountain lion when there is one. Can you spot the mountain lion? Pause the video before I spoil your fun. It's here. A remarkable experiment to show how we find patterns in noise was done in 2003 by researchers from Quebec and Scotland. They showed images of random white noise to their study participants. But the participants were told that half of those images contained the letter S covered under noise. And sure enough, people saw letters when there weren't any. Here's the fun part. The researchers then took the images which the participants had identified as containing the letter S and overlaid them. And this overlay clearly showed an S. What's going on? Well, if you randomly scatter points on a screen, then every once in a while they will coincidentally look somewhat like an S. If you then selectively pick random distributions that look a particular way and discard the others, you indeed find what you were looking for. This experiment shows that the brain is really good at finding patterns, but it's extremely bad at calculating the probability that this pattern could have come about coincidentally. A final cognitive bias that I want to mention, which is built into our brain, is anthropomorphism. That means we assign agency to inanimate objects. That's why we, for example, get angry at our phones or cars, though that makes absolutely no sense. Anthropomorphism was first studied in 1944 by Fritz Heider and Marianne Simmel. They showed people a video in which squares and triangles were moving around. And they found the participants described the videos as if the squares and triangles had intentions. We naturally make up such stories. This is also why we have absolutely no problem with animation movies whose main characters are cars, sponges, or potatoes. What does this mean? It means that our brains have a built-in tendency to jump to conclusions and to see meaningful connections when there aren't any. That's why we have astrophysicists who yell "aliens" each time they have unexplained data, and why we have particle physicists who get excited about each little anomaly even though they should full well know that they are almost certainly wasting their time. And it's why, if I hear Beatles songs playing on 2 different radio stations at the same time, I'm afraid Paul McCartney died. Kidding aside, it's also why so many people fall for conspiracy theories. If someone they know gets ill, they can't put it down as an unfortunate coincidence. They will look for an explanation, and if they look, they will find one. Maybe that's some kind of radiation or chemicals or the evil government. Doesn't really matter. The brain wants an explanation. So this is something to keep in mind. Our brains come up with a lot of false positives. We see patterns that aren't there. We see intention when there isn't any. And sometimes we see Jesus on the butt of a dog. This video was sponsored by NordVPN. NordVPN is an app that keeps you safe as you browse the internet. You install it on your phone or laptop, use it to connect to one of their servers, and then browse the web from there. This keeps your data safe, even on a public wireless. NordVPN has more than 5,000 servers all over the world and allows you to choose your location from any one of them. So if you ever encounter a video or website that is blocked where you are, you can just connect to a server in a different country and access the website from there. Viewers of this channel can now benefit from a special offer with a huge discount if you use the link nordvpn.com/Sabine and the coupon code Sabine. NordVPN works on pretty much all platforms, Android, Windows, iOS, what have you. Once again, that's nordvpn.com/Sabine and the coupon code Sabine. Thanks for watching. See you next week.